Hey, welcome back to Mobility Project. So yesterday we were kind of talking about the need to make sure that our tissues are hydrated. Let's take off the fact that if you're 1 or 2% dehydrated, we see a decrease in VO2 output of 5 or 10%. Remember the Fick equation about cardiac output? Yeah, well that volume, that stroke volume makes a difference in terms of how hard your body can pump. I mean, if you just even look at the Frank Starling mechanism about how hard your heart can contract, it's all based on the fact that you have a lot of venous return. So if you're a little bit dehydrated, that's why we see such a big drop in VO2. If I'm one of the best athletes in the world, or even a recreational athlete, do not give 5 or 10% away to that schmuck down the street who's just better hydrated than you are. The other issue is when we're talking about tissue and tissue extensibility and tissue kind of supplability, the quality of that interstitial tissue is driven largely by how well it's hydrated. When we see athletes that are running these deficits, aren't getting enough water in, that are a little bit stuck, and those waters are junky, man, I see decreased sliding surfaces of tendons all the time. People come into me missing huge ranges of motion or just stuck down. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you today another idea. Yesterday we did some tack-in stretch and open up the butt. Today we're going to go ahead and do some more tissue, what I call flossing, which is really dealing with the muscle stiffness. What we're going to do is take ourselves into a position of emphasis and then stretch that tissue out under load. So it's some eccentric loading, but then we're going to bias that tissue and bias that joint position based on using the band. One of the questions came to, through the MobilityWOD that, why do we really kind of be careful about going numb when we stretch? And one of the reasons I mentioned that is that if we trap we put a big stretch on that nerve, the nerve blood flow, the kind of blood supply of the nerve gets trapped in that epineurium and cut off, and then you get this temporary ischemia. Because the nerve needs so much blood flow, what you're getting is an emergency signal from your body saying, hey, if I make that thing numb, you'll get out of that position. That's why we don't ever stretch to numb, or we really take the seriousness, because what's happened is, you've just stretched that little nerve right in there. Didn't mean to flip off the camera, and you get the idea. So here's where we're going. A couple ideas today. One, you've seen athletes and systems talk about this stiffness, and that's what a lot of times what we're going to try to do is when we do some foam rolling. But instead of just kind of taking this position today, which is kind of our normal classic hip opener, what I'm going to do is squeeze my butt as hard as I can, and then I'm going to actively move myself through as much range as I can. Come back out, squeeze my butt, lock off, and then I'm still tight here, but I'm going to take myself through this range. And now what's happening is I'm flossing and pulling, and certainly I'm all the anterior structures here, certainly that psoas, pretty nasty. Put my arm above my head, same thing, tight, and then I'm going to squeeze, and then I'm going to floss through. And I'm going to floss, making sure that I don't lose connection so that I just overextend and drag myself through into man belly. Get tight, pull, and then just see how far you can go. And the difference is with these different rays, different corners, different oblique angles, you'll find out, oh, that's where I'm tight. Go ahead and press through there. But what the difference is that we get the good joint motion, we get the good passive accessory motion, and then we can hit the stiffness. So that's homework number one. Homework number two. We're going to flip that around. We're still working on the high hip here. I'm going to go ahead and floss, load that hip up, get a couple 100 pounds in there, and I'm going to floss in and touch that corner. And then there's two ways to do this. I can load the hip and then extend the knee, or I can just extend the knee, or extend the hip rather. So I'm keeping the leg a little bit more straight and trying to fold forward, try to keep belly tight, and I'm just touching those corners and coming out. This notion of flossing is how I'm going to tear up and open up some of this business that gets stuck down, especially since you view, the hip as the largest, most primary injury in the body. No wonder that stuff gets stick. And God forbid you ever sit at a desk, ever. So last piece, last flossing idea, is just go ahead and see if you can get some distraction. If you can't do this setup this way, just distract the hip laterally, put that foot up on a box, joint pulling me out, and then I'm just going to open up the hip laterally a little bit, kind of kicking the foot back, and it feels very different, very lateral hamstring than what I did before. And I'm just going to tighten. The key is to get tight, co-contract, and be very stiff. Everything's co-contracted, and then floss back. That's what we're thinking about. Again, watch your water, watch your intake. Recovery is everything. We need you to be able to use your whole hamstrings. Don't let them be, layers of wet clay with nails going through them. We'll see you tomorrow.